Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David. I'm your host. Today, I want to bring the game of football into your living rooms. I have my panel who is expert. I've got a goalkeeper, a defender, a midfielder, and a forward to break down the game for us and bring it into your living room so we can understand how us as players think doing certain situations on the game. Let me introduce the panel. To my left, first of all, my good old buddy, Alvin Henderson. Welcome to the set, Alvin.
Thanks again for being here. As I said, this is like a second home to me now.
And that's good. We're glad to have you, bud. And then I've got a group of Anthonys. First, Anthony Roger. And Anthony is our defender. And Anthony, welcome to the set for the first
pleasure
time.
to be here, Steve.
I hope you can continue to join us every so often.
Absolutely. So long as it's a good show, and I've seen it a couple of times, and it's educational, so it's important to be a part of it. For sure.
Okay, good,
Thanks.
great. Good to have you. I'm sure you're going to add a lot to the show. And then next to Anthony Roger is Anthony
Sherwood.
Welcome to the set.
Always a pleasure to be here, Steve.
All right, glad to have you. And then we have Anthony Clark, my buddy. Welcome to the set, bud.
Thank you very much for inviting me again, Steve.
No problem. Anytime.
Always a pleasure.
Anybody to say hi to?
No?
No. Okay. Guys, we know when we're defending and the defenders have the ball, that's when the game is the slowest. When we have the ball in defense, now we can pick things apart and we can come up the field real slow. And then when it gets to midfield, it quickens a little bit. And then when we're up front, it gets real quick. That's attacking. But when we're defending, it's the opposite, right? So I want us to break down the game so they understand, our viewers who don't know much about the game can understand where we're at in doing the games and stuff. So first one, I'm going to you, Anthony, because I heard you said before, and I never heard that from any goalkeeper before, when a striker is coming in on the line, now your goal becomes the 6-yard box. Explain that to our viewers, and let's go start from there.
Well, Steve, I had implemented a number of different approaches to goalkeeping personally. He would always teach you that when someone is coming down the line inside your box, you approach your first post and you close that angle. But then if that ball passes you, to get back to your last post, right, more than likely, it's a goal. So I adopted that. Instead of hugging the post, a lot of goalkeepers would stick on their first post. I began to use the 6-yard box as my goal. So instead of staying on the first post, I went in the middle of the 6-yard box. And that now became my goal. The first post and the 6-yard line. Because if it passed me there, more than likely it will be a goal. If you take the concept of a player coming directly to you from the center of the field, the goal post is much bigger than that 6-yard box, and you will have to make a save there.
Right.
So when coaches used to tell you, hug your first post, stay on your first post, make sure I don't go there, I used to go to the center, because if I could save coming down, right, with a player coming directly at me and I am in the middle of the goal, I can make that save there. So it was a personal decision and it worked well for me. And as I continued to progress in my career, a lot of other coaches started to have their goalkeepers do that.
Okay, but as a forward, Alvin,
Well, I have...
And he picks up the middle of that.
I have two problems with that. The first is that part of the reason that coaches used to say hug your first post is because when you're coming in at a narrow angle to the goal, and especially if you're within a 7 or 8 yard meter distance, any kind of shot on target has a great chance of scoring because your reflexes aren't that great that you're going to stop a rocket shot from that close. And if you give me a part of the goal, more of the goal to see, then I'm going to look possibly to beat you at the first post with power. As we saw many of the Brazilians taught us that as long as you're close enough, you hit the ball on target and you have a great chance of scoring. The other thing is, part of the reason, Tony, maybe you did that because you had the physical attributes of height. If you come with a close stance to me coming in on the first post, I am not going to look always to try and beat you on the ground to get it across the goal. I am going to sometimes get it over your head. It is harder turning from a close stance to 360 degrees to get to the far post than if you're already half turned. If you're already half turned in a more open stance.
But he's saying, once you beat me in the 6-yard box, it's a goal. I give that to you. He's saying, beat me here, and once you beat me here, then
that's not
okay.
necessarily true because the situation will be dependent on who else is supporting the forward coming in. If there's nobody supporting the forward,
I
understand, but I'm saying that's his thought process.
Yeah,
My
right?
thought
Another
process
thought
is
process,
exactly
Steve.
Yeah.
Right? Another thought process. What I also used to do is people don't realize that for a goalkeeper, from my perspective, it is a mind game. I have to figure out what you're going to do, and you're trying to place the ball in. Your probability of scoring based on my size and the size of the goal is a lot greater than I am at a disadvantage all the time. So therefore, if I give you an option that I want you to take, I have a greater chance of making that save because I am presenting that first post for you. And you are now, your eyes are opening up, your tongue is levitating, and then you take that shot. I have presented that opportunity for you where you have closed the options of crossing the ball, seeing where other players are. So it was a mind game for me as a goalkeeper to try to give you the option where I think it will be the hardest for you to score. For example, if it is that you're coming directly at me, I would approach you. It's harder for you to lob me than to just hit that ball at the side of me. So therefore, I would give you those options because we are on a one-on-one.
Right.
More than likely, the probability of you scoring is much higher than me making a save because of the size of the goal,
right.
All of that. So therefore, I have to present to you the hardest option for you to be the most accurate that you can be. So just now you spoke about hitting that ball at the first post and at high velocity. Great. The accuracy that you have to hit that ball at that high velocity is much greater than squaring it over for somebody to play it easily into the back of the net. So you have a harder option of doing that, or you have to be extremely accurate.
No, but what I would put it as that you are giving me more options because I now have a first post that I could get to, I have a far post that I could get to, and I have a square ball that I could play.
As a goalkeeper, we see it different.
Let me bring in a defender. Let me bring in my defender, Roger. How you see that as a defender, and what is your position as a defender?
I think it all comes into perspective of the position of where the attacker takes, the angle he's coming in at.
And where your defenders are.
Yeah, so most of the time, if you're defending, you're trying to push the players as wide as possible. You're trying to get the players head down as much as possible, not raising to see where the goalkeeper is. So now you could take advantage of those situations. So really, my job as a defender is really to make sure, and the expectation of that striker wanting to be in his comfort zone is as much as possible taking that away from him, which means taking him away in difficult angles to try and score. So, for example, a one-on-one situation or 2v2 or 3v2, the situation for me, 1-against-1, push him as wide as possible. Try to put him on his weaker foot, which is the basic thing. And sometimes with relationships with your goalkeeper, you put him to the strength of my goalkeeper as well. So, for example, in the method to Clarkie's madness, as if we would like to call it that way. I know that. So I will put him in that advantage that I think my goalkeeper is believed to be strongest. So it's really, it comes down to a lot of things. If the strength of the striker is striking the ball, then I take away that. So I am very in close contact with him, given the option to pass, not necessarily to dribble, because I'm not going to engage in a tackle, but probably confront so that he has the pass. And he doesn't have a shot on because his head is down. So basic little things there.
Well, midfield, Anthony not Roger, but Sherwood. Anthony,
It just confirms what
you
I've
should be coming in with the ball now.
Yeah, but it just confirms what I've always known, that Clarkie is a revolutionary. Because
Right.
the truth of the matter is that it's widely held that the one thing you don't want to ever have happen as a goalkeeper is you're getting beaten on your first post. You know, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's up to, you know, to each individual player. If you have a goalkeeper who is, you know, supremely confident enough to the point where he's going to give you as much of an opportunity on the first post, then, you know, kudos to him. As long as he can live with the consequences, you know. Again, the one thing you don't want to have happen at the end of a game is you know, and looking back, you've conceded a goal on what's perceived to be a mistake, essentially, you know.
But he is taking that blame. Hey, blame.
Yeah,
me. If I get beaten in the first
exactly.
place, blame.
Well, that's what I was saying, Clark.
Right, let me add to it, Steve.
Yes.
As a goalkeeper, and right, maybe this is educational for, you know, outside players and coaches. The hardest ball for you to save is the ball that is placed very close to your feet. For a goalkeeper to move his feet, get down there with his hands. Being close to your first post, that close sometimes, right, your shoulder is on the post, right? That's what the conventional coaches would have coached. If that shot was placed there, it is most difficult for you to get there. So it's better to have a smaller, right, a larger gap from your first post, and it makes it easier for you to get down and make the save. And that's why first post goals scored with goalkeepers right on the post, because it's placed at their feet, and they can't get their feet away to get their hands down, right? Yes, and that's why now you see a lot of goalkeepers trying to come this way to save, and it's a bad technique. Secondly, you have to understand what coaches tell their players. Most of the times, the forwards are running in, and coaches tell their players, square that ball back to the penalty spot. So the percentages of goals that scored on my first post to the percentages of saves I made on the 6-yard line trying to square it back, or just outside the 6-yard line with the players trying to square it back, I have made more saves cutting off that cross ball, because that's what coaches push into their players. You get down the line, they don't tell you hit first post. They tell you square that ball back. So therefore, it's a mind game whereby, okay, you know, your eyes open. If you hit inaccurately, it either comes straight to me, or it goes outside the first post, or I make the save. So the options, which Alvin might think it's better, it's better for me because you can make more errors. Squaring that ball back to the 18 or the penalty spot, you have 4 players coming in there, and I now have to turn around to go and defend the far side of the goal. So from a goalkeeper's perspective, I prefer to be confronted with you right here and then, take everybody else out of the picture, right, that's behind me, and you beat me. It's a confrontation, me against you, you beat me.
Tony, let me tell you something. When I was growing up, my early years into my mid to teenage years, as a forward, coming in on the near post, I was always felt that, always coached, make sure you pull that ball back. Make sure you pull that ball back.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
But that's how we were coached.
Yes.
When I was exposed, particularly to the Brazilian team that visited Trinidad and Tobago, and I remember this, it's still in my brain, Caravetti coming in on the near post in Trinidad and Tobago. And we're thinking he's going to pull that ball back.
He's right.
And hits it with power, whoop, outside of his left foot. Whoop, goal. Coming down the right side, whoop, goal. If you hit that ball on frame from near enough, into any space, the chances of a goalkeeper getting it are slim to none unless it comes directly to him. Let me just finish off by saying the reason that the coaches hit far post is because that's a second chance option.
Correct.
The second chance option is he's going to parry.
Correct.
He's going to parry, and there's a striker at one of the prime scoring areas, which is the far post, and we all know good strikers make their living at the far post.
1 second. But Alvin, do you understand?
Wait.
Yes.
We got to take a break. We got to take a break here. Let's take a break, and when we come back, I want to bring in the defender as well in the midfield. Viewers will be right back after the short break.
Any good footballer will tell you a lot of what you do on the field is just instinctual. You know, a lot of it is just having a keen sense of what your opposition is like. You know, so I don't think, Steve, there's too much of a mythology.
We are inspired. We are practiced. We learn. We have challenges. We are supported. We persevere. And we shine. This is our commitment to you.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Guys, all right, we beat that one to death. We understand now that it's a decision we make, and sometimes we go for pace, Alvin. Sometimes we knock it back, whatever. So sometimes the goalkeeper win, and sometimes we win as strikers. So let's move into a one-on-one situation, Roger. Yeah. One-on-one situation. You have a midfielder or a forward coming at you. You have just you to defend with your goalkeeper in the back of you. What's your thought process in that situation?
I think the thing for us, especially in my time, it made it a lot easier because there was a lot of footage of the opponents that you came up against. So it was very important to understand the opponents. And that made a big difference in your thought process and how you approach things. So For example, I would be coming up against an Anthony Sherwood, and I know the talent of Anthony Sherwood. So Anthony Sherwood will not be, I wouldn't rush to close down Anthony Sherwood possibly. I would probably give him a little more time until he gets closer to the goal. Then I have to make decision, and probably in a one-on-one situation, hopefully close off his opportunity to score, but give him the option maybe to make the pass. Hopefully I can get the other striker on an offside position or something like that. But the thing for me is it's in that one-on-one situation, it's basically mano a mano, forcing that person on the ball, because he has the strength. He has the ball, he has to make a decision. I'm actually hoping he makes a mistake to capitalize on that, because talented players, if you rush in, they're gonna go past you. So you
jockeying him, then you jockey him all the way.
You try to
back.
force him into a position where he's uncomfortable, but you have to do it quickly because there's support coming. And also, if you do it quick enough, it makes him make up his mind to pass or to do something you want him to do, which is a couple of things I used to do was, because of his strengths and weaknesses, either I allow him to shoot on his weaker foot,
Correct.
or I allow him to go into a situation where he's not comfortable. So, for example, I'll push a central striker in a wide position. Most central striker, when they go wide, they want to dribble, they don't want to pass. So it slows the game down and give my defense a lot of time to come back. So situations like that you try to create.
So sure, tell him how you'd embarrass him then. When you
I mean,
do that to you.
I think it's the same concept. I mean, essentially, you want to have a sense of the players you're coming up against. There will be defenders that you know are particularly very quick, so you've got to take a different approach. There's some guys who are not, although they are defenders, they're not as good in 1v1 situations. And quite frankly, those are the guys that you want to go after. You know, those are the guys that that you feel you're going to have some success against. You know, so a lot of it is just, any good footballer will tell you, a lot of what you do on the field is just instinctual. You know, a lot of it is just having a keen sense of what your opposition is like. You know, so I don't think, Steve, there's too much of a mythology behind it per se. More so, I know Steve, if as a midfielder, I may be coming up against Steve David in midfield. I'm on the outside. You may have found yourself on the outside. I know you're very pacey. I have got to make adjustments based on your characteristics.
Okay, but I'm a forward and I'm coming up against a defender. If I know I can beat him on pace, I will beat him on pace. I just drop my shoulder one way and go. If I can't beat him on pace and I can beat him other than that, I would beat him. But again, I would wait. I always take the ball. I'll take the ball. I'll take the ball. As long as you let me take it, I will take it until you commit and want me to do something. If you don't, I will push you right in the goal with the ball, and then I will play. And sometimes defender would back so close to the goal, then you can shoot before he even tackle you.
I think the thing with that though, it allows, I mean, again, developing different attributes of defending. I think the game has evolved so much now that there's strikers who are very quick. You don't see them doing a lot of skill anymore.
Right.
So defenders now has to be quick and strong, because you now defending, back in the day it was about moving your feet and basic thing, natural defending, get yourself between the ball and the goal, and allow the striker or the opponent player to go wide. But today, some players, you give them wide and they'll hurt you the same way. So now everything, the hands come into play now. If the proper defending now, if I'm a defender or if I'm coaching defenders and I could get my hand to touch you, it makes life very, very difficult for you. I try to make you as uncomfortable as possible. So it's not just about whatever you do. It's forcing you to put you in a position where I can off-balance you. I can push you around with my shoulder, and I force you to actually try to dribble me, literally.
You know what's interesting though, Steve? I think the game has evolved so much that defenders today are in some cases not so much assessed based on their ability to defend, but more so their ability in possession of the football. You look at some of the top defenders in world football today, Dani Alves from Barcelona, for instance. is hammered sometimes for his inability to defend. But he's one of the best defenders. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago with Barcelona, he's one of the best attacking defenders in the world. The guy who plays for Real Madrid in the back there on the left side, the Brazilian. You know, I looked at him last night. Same thing. You know, not known for being the strongest defensively in 1v1 situations, but they add such a dimension to their teams going forward. Some defenders are shipped out from teams today because they're just not good enough in possession of the ball. You know, so for me, it's kind of demonstrated how the game has evolved essentially.
And you know why? Why? I think it's because we cut down so many. We have one striker, so there's not much people for them to defend against. Alvin, back in the day.
Yeah.
So now it's 3 guys in the back coming up against 1 guy.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little much easier for them, I think.
For me as a goalkeeper, it's a little more tactical right than that. I understand Anthony's position as a defender, and right, what I did, I normally had very good relationships with my defense.
Right.
I was very vocal. And for me tactically, that's a time when he has his attacker slowing him down. I would be approaching off my goal line because I'm expecting him to try to push past my defender. So if that happens, so it's really a cat and mouse game for the goalkeeper because he is creeping off his line, if it's close enough to the goal, that is. Because as the attacker pushes past, you want to try to get out there and smother the ball or the shot, right, or something like that. So it's more tactical for me. I have to time, right, my defender, I have to speak to him, keep him there, keep him there, keep him there. And even sometimes I might tell him tackle, because when he tackles, the attacker has to push past and jump. It gives me more time to advance and so on. So it is communication. It is understanding and having that relationship with the defenders and be able to communicate and make sure that you work as a team, but the goalkeeper has to lead that. The goalkeeper has to lead that.
Okay.
I'd just like to add.
Okay, go ahead.
As a forward, if you are a 2-footed forward, it makes it much more difficult for the defender. And when I was playing, it didn't matter if I went left or right.
Right.
There was a shot of significance coming after.
Right.
So if you're 2-footed forward, you can go either way.
Yes.
And it makes it harder on the defender to push you to what you would call your weaker side.
I think what's happening now as well, one of the things that I've realized looking at games, it's really trying to stop the ball from getting into that position. I think a lot of teams now are working harder to stop the ball from getting into their final third. And that means they play with an extra midfielder playing deeper. So any ball that's being played is more or less over the top or down the sides for crosses, but not necessarily coming through them. I mean, the likes of Barcelona and these teams are really hard to play against. But the time when you see teams get over the Barcelonas of this world is because they've stopped that. So it's almost like packing your defense and encouraging long balls to come in and dealing with balls like that. Because when the ball is in the air, it's no one's ball. So a lot of teams now are. I'm looking at this championship that's being played with all the top teams. It's really the defense is having more possession than most times you've seen before, and it's about keeping the ball as much as you can
closing the spaces
until something happens. But the issue is now what teams are doing is allowing you to have possession in deep areas, and hoping that you have to take the risk now in playing a difficult ball to the strikers. And defenders are more than likely happy with that than the one-on-one situation.
And you're right, but I was watching Barcelona play Manchester United last night on TV, and I observed when they have the ball in defense. Manchester had the ball in their defense. The goalkeeper with the ball, they have one defender, Man United defender, free. All the others they pick up. The goalkeeper played to him. He has nobody to play to. He has to play back to the goalkeeper. The same thing happened again. So that was a good strategic defensive move by them. I've never seen that before.
Right.
Because all I used to see before is ball go from one defender to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So
And
I
it's
thought that
become-
was
it's becoming
pretty,
the same thing Sherwood was talking about for the evolving league game. They're now actually looking for goalkeepers who can play.
right.
You're now using midfielders to defend
Yeah.
because it's about the possession of the ball and being comfortable in possession. There's certain dangerous areas in defending. I mean, now you're talking about defending from on top. So there's difficult areas where if you try to press the ball, which is most teams are trying to do now, but it takes so much energy from you. So where you have more possession now is in your final third when you have possession of the ball. And teams now, even the goalkeeper, are now trying to possess the ball as much as possible, hoping you overcommit and then creates that chance in behind. So it's a real tick for tat now in the game. There's so much tactical awareness, but you still need the players to be able to do that.
Okay, my question to you guys now, in each of your positions, what don't you not like somebody to do to you? Whether it's defending or your attacker and defender send you, like you said, lead you down the wrong path or whatever. What do you not like, do you feel uncomfortable with?
If you don't mind, one of the problems I always have with, and I thought it made my life easier because the difficult thing I had was my whole professional career, I would play offense. Even when I played in England, I have never played defense in England.
Right.
But when I came back for Trinidad, because of the ability of the players and being able to balance the team as much as we can, I would literally only play defense, even if it was in midfield.
Right.
And from a defensive position, I think the major thing was communication. I think that was, and there was sometimes, you try to explain these to kids now. Communication doesn't only mean with your mouth, with speaking. It's about understanding your position, understanding what is needed with the situation that's before you. So the fundamentals of defending, one defender goes up to attack the ball, the other one drops off and help nullify the space. If I know the Anthony Sherwood and I played a lot together, he's a very intelligent player, but if I can take away a lot of his defensive duties in the position that I play, it allows him to be an asset for us offensively. So I would make sure he's in a position where I can help him, help me to help my team. So I think that's the difficulty that I see locally in Trinidad and Tobago. The players actually taking the time to understand the game, and not just understanding the game with trying to do what Messi and Ronaldo is doing. Understand the game from a perspective of, if this situation is before you, what do I do now?
Right.
You know?
I think generally speaking, Steve, I mean, one of the most threatening characteristics of any player, whether it's midfielder or forward, remains those guys who are able to pick up the ball and break defenders down. You know, by in some cases simply going at guys. You know, for me, that is probably the most attractive quality of any midfielder, and it holds true today because the guys who receive all of the attention in world football remains the guys who are very good at doing that. Messi, Neymar, Cristiano Ronaldo to an extent, you know. So I have had the experience, however, of being on the field with another centre midfielder, a Brazilian centre midfielder with the Brazilian national under-20 team. And I was just amazed of how he was able to control that Brazilian team. He was the captain of that team, played for Flamengo, I believe, by playing maybe one or two touch football. It was the craziest thing, you know, because it almost seemed as if we had no answer for the decisions that he made, his ability to control the tempo of the game. So he wasn't a guy that was picking up and trying to go past two or three guys. It was just, as soon as their defenders picked up the ball, they got it to him, and he made decisions that would determine if they play at a quick pace or they were playing slower. So, you know, it was an interesting contrast for me.
So it's one of the things that we mentioned what didn't you like or what don't I like. What I don't like is playing by myself up front as a striker. And that is what I think modern football has come to. I like, and I've always said this to many of the coaches and whatnot, I always feel that good strikers come in pairs. We play off of each other. They come in pairs. And modern football has evolved now. Even if you don't start as a striker, the support is coming so slowly that the striker who's up there doesn't get a chance to use the support to benefit himself or his fellow striker. I remember one of the things that was very important to me was running off the ball. And my running off the ball depended a lot on what my co-striker did.
Right.
If he made a run and it caught the eye of the defenders because it's a potential to get a good ball, I would make my run off of his run. And in football now these days, especially in Trinidad football, when we're not getting that support coming up as quickly as you can from the midfield position, if you're not playing with a two-striker system, you're not having strikers being able to make runs off of each other in a more central area. You have to depend on a wide striker or wide attacking player to be making those runs. In the higher level, you see them making it. In the lower level, it's harder to do because you always have some defensive responsibility when you play in wide positions.
You guys, let me say something here. Did you know, as strikers, when we drop into the midfield, you guys have so much time to play. And then, because we don't have that much time up front, and I'm sure the defenders, and Roger should be, because Roger play both positions, he should be aware of this. As defenders, to us, you guys have so much time to play, and we don't get that kind of time. So we got to take a break now, but when we come back, let's talk about that. Why is that so? And Views will be right back after the short break.
Because then now everything is about the heart monitors and the red zones and all that sorts of things now, and the amount of games that players are playing now. I think it's very important that we be able to manage games.
We are inspired. We are practiced. We learn. We have challenges. We are supported. We persevere. And we shine. This is our commitment to you.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Hey guys, before the break, like I was saying, even from, let's start with goalkeeper. When a goalkeeper is on, attackers is coming at him, he's more tense and everything. And then when he's going forward, of course, nothing to do, he's relaxed. Same with defense. When attackers are coming to you, you play at 100 miles an hour. But then when you're going forward, you play at 50 miles an hour. In midfield, I think it's the same. But because us as strikers, when we come up, when we drop back in the midfield, we say, wow, look at how much space, right, Alvin? Look at how much space and time they have here. But up front, we don't. Do you guys feel that way or as defenders or midfielders or goalkeeper or anything? Tell me, talk about that. Let's talk on that. Why you have so much space in the midfield and defense when we're going forward? Nothing to do?
Would I be safe to say it's putting you in a situation where it's less dangerous?
No, not necessarily. I think right, the game is such right that you learn the game of attackers have to be marked man to man. So in terms of the amount of space that you have, because you are closer to the goal, so therefore you are not allowed more space. Teams give other teams time to prepare, see what you're going to do. So as you're coming out from defense, now most teams drop back to the half line. They give you all the room you want in your defense, right? Even when it reaches into midfield, yeah, you close up a little tighter, but you still give your the opposing midfielders time because you're not sure what they're going to do. You are focusing on the movements of the attackers, where they're going, and you have to mark the opposing team's attackers man to man because that's where it gets dangerous. So the space and the time closes down as you approach the other team's goal.
And that's obvious because
that's how the game is.
So our game is really always a busy band kind of thing.
Well, one of the problems with the Trinidad players is because, as we have spoken about before, the technical ability of our Trinidad players against some of the people in the CONCACAF region, they don't respect our technical ability. So they put more pressure on us in defensive positions than they would normally put on a highly technical team in defensive position. If you go at a very technical team in defensive position, they will embarrass you.
Right.
So you have to back off and try and group in a tactical way such that you can give up possession and still be able to keep goals from being scored. That's why I was so impressed in this tournament with Jamaica, with players of lesser ability, one or two of them technical enough, but the majority of them of lesser ability, their group defending was outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding. And they gave up very few goals in this tournament, and their group defending was very impressive.
You don't think the quickness made up for it?
Well, part of the skill that they had in defending was that quickness in closing down the ball.
But not only quickness, Alvin. I think with the Jamaicans, they worked very hard, and they understood their job, and they understood their positioning and their role, and from that they made less mistakes than someone who is just out there lost and like how most of our Trinidad players.
And you hate people who don't understand their job.
You have to understand the game. The game, I mean, I was always a student of the game. And I think that is what is happening to our football now. The players are no longer students of the game.
Right.
I have goalkeeping books. I have football books. I have strategy books. How many of our national players study the game, or do they just go out, train, learn from experience? You have to also be a student of the game, and I think that is what is lacking in modern day football in Trinidad.
Right. Roger, you were going to say something?
I think I want to mention with what was mentioned about the attitude of
Jamaica,
of certain players like the Jamaicans. A lot of teams now, we have to be so careful now of just coming back from Europe recently. There's a serious talk about efficiency. Clubs are now very, very cognizant of the efficiency of their players being able to last. And one of the reasons why they don't press as much, because, or if they do press, so they don't press as much, is because they save energy to be able to last and to be able to do the things I need you to do when we do have the ball. The other side is if I think if I press you and I win the ball back here, I don't have to do all that work back here, because then now everything is about the heart monitors and the red zones and all that sorts of things now, and the amount of games that players are playing now. I think it's very important that we be able to manage games. And again, that comes back to being a student of the game and understanding, being able to manage a game, know when, because that, to me, the Jamaican team, as Doc was saying, defended well, but they absorb so much pressure. It's just a matter of time a mistake happens. And that's what happened. They did literally everything right until that one defensive header, because the guy, it's so much pressure, and he, like, instead of heading the ball properly, he didn't head it straight back into play, which is one mistake, 1 millisecond of a mistake.
Cost them the game.
Cost you the game. And if you had maybe, argumentatively, if they probably kept the ball better, to let this boy be a little more relaxed in a defensive position, maybe he might have made another decision.
Keeping the ball, you have to have the technical skill and ability to do it. Yes, the Jamaicans have speed, but not too many of them, a few of them, were gifted technically that they could have possessed the ball against a U.S. team who is almost always good defensively.
And we have that same problem.
I want to ask this question too, though, because as you said that, it dawned on me that, is it that, are we saying that our players are not, our region doesn't have the players technically to possess football? Or are we saying we're not selecting the right players who does have that ability to possess the ball?
I think it's a breakdown in coaching, quite frankly. You look at a lot of youth football in Trinidad, you look at a lot of senior football in Trinidad, there seems almost as if there's no consequence to losing the ball. So in my day, if I lost possession of the football, I mean, I would beat myself up about it.
Right.
It's like the worst thing I could do
Right.
in the game, quite frankly. I look at a lot of young players today, and they give away the ball because of a lack of good technique, and they don't seem to be too bothered by it. And if you have a generation, Steve, and Doc, and everybody else, if you have a generation that's coming up who are not that obsessed with being really, really good fundamentally, then you're going to have a group of older guys who lose the ball too easily against good teams who, as Doc hit the nail on the head, who recognize that we're just not that good in possession. So we're just going to press you for the entire game. You know, I would love to see us get to the point where we have players who are that good now, playing under that type of pressure, good in tight spaces. But it's not just going to happen. It's something that we have to...
Yeah.
I think
we have to teach, we have to coach.
Well, it's not only coaching, Anthony. It's right. It's actually the whole concept of, or your strategy of football for your country. Remember, the teams that we are going up against, they have professional leagues that are well established. They look for players from 6 years old. They start, and it's a policy of the country.
But we have that here, though, Clark.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't have, right.
I mean, anywhere you go in Trinidad and Tobago, you will see a little. I mean, I don't know the strength of the organizations that you see
Right,
sometimes, but you will see them all over the place.
And
for me, what determines the quality of the players that we produce is the information that those little guys are getting at 6 and 7 and 8 years old.
And that is what I'm speaking about. I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Because if it was a policy, then you would ensure that those clubs that are all over the place, one, that the coaches are qualified.
True.
Right? Two, that you have some sort of assessment of players.
Mm-hmm.
You have some sort, right, look, presently we don't have, right, the South League anymore. We don't have the East League. We don't have the North League. So the ability for those players to practice what they're learning and training and to assess themselves and to reassess it's not there, right?
That's personal opinions, though, because I'll tell you why. I could ask for you guys now. What would you select? A player with very good technical skill or a player with average and a lot of speed? Speed or skill? Which one would you?
I have always said that the first attribute that I require, even for the goalkeeper on a football team, is skill. Why skill? It doesn't have to be the skill level that you have. For example, I practiced keep-ups. I was one of the first goalkeepers that actually used their feet a lot. Why? Because that's when goalkeepers could not have held the ball anymore. It came in my era. So therefore, we had to be good at our feet. The goalkeepers of the past before me were not as good with their feet as I was. So now in the modern day game, skill is the #1 requirement. Right after skill, I put speed, right? But now, the first requirement from goalkeeper goes straight up to skill.
Okay,
Right? That's my opinion.
If you selecting, what kid would you want? What are you looking for?
I mean,
Speed and skill.
technique. I feel like, you know, I can develop the physical attributes of a player to an extent. But if a kid does, in other words, see, we all know this. I mean, there's some players who will never have a good first touch. They just don't have that God-given attribute. So if I have 11 guys of exceptional technique, I feel like I can develop an approach that allows us to have some success.
Okay, I want Roger.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I would go with speed.
Okay. And why?
But I think speed, from a perspective, you need some. I think you can coach a little bit of skill. I think speed you can't.
Right.
I think for me that's the thing, and the modern day game. I know from youth level there's a lot of balance and competitiveness, but when they start moving up, when you do need the speed, when everybody else is pretty.
But are we saying, Steve, I mean, exceptional speed? There's some guys who are quick, and there's some guys who are just, in the world's game, Cristiano Ronaldo is an exceptional athlete. The average footballer today playing the game is not as quick as he ever was. Messi is exceptionally quick. You know, the average guy out there is not going to possess that type of quickness. You know what I mean?
General question. What do you think, Alvin?
Well, I will cheat and say that I want both.
Yes.
But, but I would say that if it's a person under 10 years of age, I would look to see how he masters the ball. And because I honestly feel, and we could talk about any of us here, I think at 10 years of age, we were all footballers of certain quality in your community. And you're not going to tell me that you weren't one of the masters of the ball in your community at that age.
Yeah, but
yes, you need speed, but you need to master the ball.
I'm like Roger. The only answer for speed is more speed. You cannot stop somebody with quickness. But if they have good technical ability, you can defend them.
I could bring plenty footballers that I've seen through the years, have endless speed, faster than you or Keith Ackley or other players that I've seen. but they're not mastery of the ball, and they had no brain.
But I'm saying they have to have I said average technical ability, speed.
Yeah, but Steve, you asked what was the first
the one
category, yeah?
Okay.
Right, the first thing.
I would still take speed, you know why?
Right.
Because I can develop their technical stuff, but I can't develop speed for them.
Okay, so therefore, right, what you're saying is that I will go to an athletic game and choose my footballers.
No, a footballer with speed that's what it is, right? We're talking footballers.
Well. Right, well, the first thing that you will notice with a footballer, right, that that fella is good, is his touch. It is...
if you could play.
Well, right, so therefore that's what the first
thing. But if I'm recruiting, and there's a guy with lots of skill, and one with
now you're changing your question.
Huh?
You're now changing your question.
What I would say, Steve, is this.
My first question was, and roll back that tape, I said, with
one
speed
characteristic
and average skill, that's what I said. Speed,
average skill?
Yes. I said average skill and speed, or with good technical ability.
I thought you were looking for either or, Steve, to be honest.
Depends on the age. If it's a young person, where you have time in your teenage years, early teenage years, to develop that mastery of the ball and improve technique and skill, sure. But if you have a teenager in the late teens and all he has is speed, he's not gonna develop
I didn't say-
significant technique.
we ain't talking about all he
age,
has.
no, but say age is
I agree with Alvin.
But I think
critical.
position also factors as well.
And the position
If
has
I have
to
a
change.
kid up
Correct.
front who is exceptionally quick, I might make little compromises in terms of little
Technique,
flaws in his
yes, yeah.
technique because I know this is a guy that can threaten a defense in
All the time,
behind
right.
constantly.
You could also
your
do defensive
midfielders, your centre backs, same thing.
You're right. In the midfield, you want good technical
Yeah, for
ability
sure.
in the midfield because you don't have much reasons to have speed.
Yeah.
But in defense and up front, I think you need that.
But
Yes.
I think the modern game today is changing.
Right?
There is a old saying that they sell to the less first world countries that it's all about with the ball. That's a thing they've been saying now. Everything we do is about the ball. Use the ball to do everything from the start of the warm up to the end.
True.
That's a myth. Because you have to incorporate with what they do, and they don't tell you to do that. Obviously, when they say the ball, all you think about is the skill. But they use the ball to quietly develop speed,
Yeah.
develop strength. But what they do is now make sure that you're familiar with the ball doing all these things, so the ball doesn't become a foreigner to you. So I think it's a lot of balance we need.
That's why I wanted both.
You were cheating there, Alvin, for a minute.
But it's interesting though, Steve, and I say this only because let's say, for instance, you are somebody identifying young players.
Right?
What the attributes that you are looking for, based on what you're saying to me, may be so different from what Anthony Clark's looking for, Anthony Roger, Doc's looking for.
Right.
And I think that's where we all have to get together and come up with some common understanding
Right.
of what sort of players are we attempting to develop, so our national senior teams and our under 20 teams
Correct.
will have some more success in the future.
And I think I mentioned
Because I
that
might be
earlier on.
looking for that ultra technically gifted kid. Whereas you may say, you know what, I don't care if he's that good on the ball. If he has a lot of pace and he's strong,
And he can
that's
shoot.
the guys. That's the
All
guys
right,
I'm going to
guys.
go for.
We
you
run
know?
out of time. All right. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. Thank ACTN for giving us the opportunity. Thank you, panel. Thank you guys so much for your insight and appreciate you guys so much. I'll give you a bottle of water as something when I leave. Appreciate you. Viewers, the show's ended. Go in peace. My name is Steve David. I'll see you next Monday night. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, and don't forget our email address, fieldofdreamstt@gmail.com. Drop us a line. Good night.